So in 2018, surely we're all training to some sort of quantitative measuring device, either strapped to our bike or to ourselves.
Well, you know what? Sometimes I just wish I could ride my bike and get rid of all of these tracking devices. Sync to this, sync to that. I just want to be able to get fitter, faster and stronger without all of this extra hassle.
So to get the best out of training on field, as ever, it's well worth thinking way ahead. So get yourself a pen and paper or an online planner, and that's really helpful to start off with.
Yeah, the main reason for doing this is to create a plan that you can stick to, follow and progress with. It's easy to lose direction, so make sure you keep on track.
And be sure to put in some interval sessions, but don't use two similar sessions in quick succession.
Aim to keep it interesting, because doing that will help you motivate yourself much more than if all your sessions were really bland and quite similar. You should by now have at least a week's worth of training on paper with the types of rides, durations and intervals that you plan to complete. From here, you will want to translate those planned intensities or training zones into on-the-bike sensations, and that is where we will use perceived exertion. And for certain efforts, max duration to failure. This is particularly useful for maximal efforts.
So with max duration to failure, we are referring to pushing yourself to an intensity that will see you want to stop. So in other words, doing a 2-minute effort, but as soon as that time starts to finish, that's when you want to stop and either sit in the gutter or sit back in the saddle and freewheel.
Yeah, and a similar philosophy will apply to your 20-minute efforts. You want to push yourself as hard as you can maintain for that entire duration, failing on the final pedal stroke. This is definitely one way that you can guarantee you'll be pushing yourself hard enough.
So the only place this doesn't necessarily ring true is when completing efforts at a lower intensity. So what I mean by that is if you're doing a 40-minute interval at say 80%, you'd much prefer to go on perceived exertion instead of max to failure.
Yeah, and this is a really good system actually. By using a scoring system from 1 to 10, with 10 being your absolute hardest, most excruciating effort, and 1 being the sort of intensity, well, you could pretty much do forever, really. Your endurance sessions should start out at around 4 on a perceived exertion scale, with the 20-minute efforts I described before around an 8.5 to 9. An effort of 30 to 60 minutes would be 7 to 8, with your 3 to 6 minute efforts around 9 to 9.5. For much of the effort, squeezing towards a 10 at the end. Anything under 3 is most likely to be a 9.5 to a 10, in reality, as these efforts are just so short and explosive. Training with max duration to failure is an easier way to gauge your training than perceived exertion. However, when done over a period of months, it can be particularly mentally draining. But if you can cope with this, then I think it's a great tool.
Yes, but I would use a combination of the two, and this will give you the best results out of your training.
So even though we've said goodbye to all those cutting-edge training tools that make keeping track of your fitness a lot easier, it's still actually really beneficial to keep tabs on what it is you're actually doing. So by filling out something like an online training diary or even a notepad would be a really ideal thing to do.
Yeah, so start off with recording the duration, ideally to the nearest minute. Then comment on any intervals or efforts and then sensations that went with them. You will then start to build a picture of how each session went, and then you'll be able to track how your perceived feeling has changed as you went on.
And if it's a visual guide you're after, you may even find by keeping a bar chart for each day of the week and the duration you completed, quite a good way of really quickly seeing what it is you've actually done on the bike.
Just like completing the efforts, you have to pay attention to the sensations you feel. It's okay for your muscles to burn and feel uncomfortable, but you still have to be able to complete the efforts.
And you also need to be able to judge between the two types of fatigue. The beneficial fatigue, legs that feel tired and a little bit sore, but you're still able to push through and really complete the efforts. You need this to overload your system and actually progress. Or fatigue that's deeply rooted and your body just does not want to know. This is not going to help you. So if you feel like that, it's best to take the day off.
So learning the difference between the two is key to the success of training on field. So use the diary we mentioned before, and this will aid it in effectively monitoring your training.
Yeah, a simple scoring system could work really well. Use 1 as feeling fresh and I'm ready to go, and 10 as I'm on my knees and I'm absolutely broken. A bit like us right now. Anything above a 6 or a 7, and I would class that as really quite tired. Anything under 5, and well, you're good to go really, and get back on the bike. How do you feel?
Fatigued.
Yeah.
5.
5 more minutes sleep.
Yeah.
So even though you're not using tech to monitor or even dictate your training, be warned, it could still be having an influence over your rides. And that comes via your riding buddies. You never know if they're on Strava, and maybe they're just aiming to rip up their local KOM. And this could be changing the sorts of rides that you're doing. So keep an eye out for that.
Yes, don't be tempted to tag along or copy them. A well-balanced training program will give you the best results in your quest for greater fitness.
Joining in with your riding pals is still absolutely fine and could even be a great form of motivation. Just don't continually allow them to influence the style of riding that you need to be doing. Training on feel still very much has a place, even in 2018. It's a great way to get to know yourself a little bit better and can be really effective, especially if your power meter's gone back or you just don't want to buy one.
Yeah, I'm actually a really big believer of training on feel, and well, let us know if you are too in the comments below. And be sure to give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video.
Yeah, and if you'd like to check out some sort of intervals to include within your training sessions, why not click down here?